So I was going to ask you if you could sign this book for me. I have your alchemy animation book.
Oh, how nice.
So
Yeah, just pass it through.
if you could just sign the front page there, that would be good. Here, I'll hand it over
Sure.
to you. There we go. You want to
That's
just
all.
scribble something on there, and then
Sure. Here we go.
okay. All right, just
Okay.
hand it back. All right, let's see it. Here we go. Great. All right, so let's see what you wrote. Look at
No,
that.
happy to do it for you, really.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate that.
Anytime.
Wow. I don't know how you do that, but
Technology. No, it's
there we
amazing.
go. This is Animateducated, and today we have a special guest, Don Hahn. Yes, the Don Hahn, producer of many films that you grew up with: Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, Nightmare Before Christmas, Frankenweenie, 8 feature films, Maleficent, which I can't say. Oh, I think he's coming in. Oh, I better put my mask on. I don't want to. I mean, we're very close together here. I don't know if this works. Let me see if I can hear him. All right, I'm fully on. Don is in the building. He's coming around the corner. We all have our mask on. Jody, do you have your mask on? Yes. Frank, you have your mask on? Good. Mr. Hahn will be showing up any moment. And oh, there he is. Oh, good. There he is. Hey, Don, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I hear you. Yes.
Lovely.
I guess I don't really need this mask to think about it. I thought we're very close.
Well,
We're very close.
I don't know. It might be good. You never know.
You know, they have viruses in computers, you know, so you never know.
Yeah, it could be the same.
So I'm going to take this off. I think we'll be okay. So
Okay, thank you. That's very nice of you, though. Thank you.
yeah. So how are you? How are you doing?
Doing really good. Thanks for having me talk today. It's good. Everything's fine. How about you?
Luckily, this isn't live. I've found out that doing live interviews is really, I can't handle that. I don't know how you do it.
I try not to, actually. It's better that way.
Well, first of all, you started off in Chicago, but then you moved to LA at a young age, I guess.
Yeah, I was really young. My family moved to Los Angeles from Chicago when I was 3 years old.
Oh, okay.
And it was that time, like the late 50s, early 60s, when Los Angeles was really like an amazing place of change, I guess would be it, because a lot of people were coming back from World War II. A lot of families were moving in. There was a lot of growth. There was a lot of development. Disneyland was opening up. You know, it was just a place of sunshine and optimism, and we moved into all that. So I was a lucky kid, I think, being part of that kind of era. And that, you know, that lasted for a while.
You started off which is interesting, you start off as a drum major, doing percussion as a kid.
Yeah. It's funny because when you say drum major, you think of, you know, the guy at the front of the marching band. And I was that too, but I was also a major in drums like a music major. And I always loved that. You know, I think I have pictures of me at 3 years old with a drum on my lap. So I think I must have grown up with drumsticks and always loved it. And so that was great. That was kind of my entrance into all things music. And I still love it as much as I ever have. You know, I had a pretty normal childhood. I always was a Disney fan, though. And after I got out of university, I had an opportunity to work at Disney, and I leapt at it. It was just an entry-level job. It was just delivering things to the animators. I was working in the basement, actually, and delivering, you know, whatever they wanted. But what was great is the animators that worked with Walt Disney were still there. So I was able to, you know, talk to them. They were generous. They were, you know, they were happy to find out what I was interested in. And it was a great that was my university in a funny way. It was kind of a great continuation of my education, and being surrounded by all those great artists and musicians. And that really seduced me into the animation process. I really was lucky to have that kind of input early on, that kind of inspiration early on. And I never had aspirations. I think a lot of people have, they might go to university wanting to be a movie producer or wanting to be a director or filmmaker. I had none of that. I really didn't. I was headed towards being a percussionist or a music teacher, and that would have been fine. Life would have been good still. But I got really into the ability to work with music and art at Disney. Were like 2 or 3 things that I really loved. So I stuck around. I tried to work hard and tried to hang in there and slowly grow. So I think stumbling into producing was really a stumble. I am an artist. I'm a painter. I'm an okay artist. I think I'm not Glenn Keane or James Baxter or Nick Ranieri or any of those guys. Yeah. And I saw that. I maybe I could have been had I had the patience to work at it and practice more. But I didn't go to Cal Arts. I didn't go to a animation school or like Sheridan. And I really liked working with people. So I kind of migrated towards production a little bit more. And that's how I got into producing around the time of kind of the late 80s. Mm-hmm. When Roger Rabbit was happening, was the first thing I worked on as a producer. And I like it. I liked it because of the variety. I'm a little attention deficit probably, so I like the variety of shiny things I could work on. And I like the idea of moving around and working with a lot of different people on a lot of different things. And I'm good, I think, at keeping a lot of plates spinning. Mm. So that was something I really enjoyed and still do.
Even before that, though, weren't you the production manager on like the Black Cauldron and Disney's Mickey Christmas Carol?
Yeah. I worked on Christmas Carol, which was a real pleasure. Bernie Mattinson was the director producer of it, and he's a great, he's a gentleman who's now been around Disney for probably 50 or 60 years, yeah. And a real true legend at Disney. Great people person, great draftsman, great mentor, I think, to me. And then working on Great Mouse Detective, Black Cauldron first was a challenge. I think the thing about Black Cauldron, it takes a lot of heat because it's a movie that wasn't that successful. There's a lot of great work in it, though, and a lot of really great attempts at doing good work, good animation, good visual effects and things. It just didn't come together as a movie, and it's a really complicated story. Yeah. And it just wasn't the right time. But Great Mouse Detective was, another, kind of step in the direction of a new generation coming in. Ron Clements, John Musker, Bernie Mattinson again. And it felt really fresh. It felt like the character designs, the stories, the plot, the voices, everything about it felt like a step in a fresh direction. And I think we all felt that. I don't know, the word Renaissance was never used until a few years ago. So it's not like I don't think anybody ever sits there thinking, hey, we're in a Renaissance now, guys. Yeah. You just don't, it's not something you use. But it felt good. It was hard work, but it felt good. And to see people like John Musker and Ron Clements and, later so many great directors, George Scribner, who did Oliver and Company, see them kind of come up in the world and stretch their creative muscles was exciting for all of us, I think. And we still had the benefit of Eric Larson, the great mentor, one of the 9 Old Men that Walt worked with. Eric was still around. Walt Stanchfield, one of our great trainers, was still around. So we had some great people to lean on. And even Mark Davis was accessible. You could go up to Mark Canales' house and have a cocktail and talk about old times. And so that, Chuck Jones was around. It was a time of handoff. If you look at a film like the credits of Fox and the Hound, everybody worked on that movie. Ollie Johnston and Frank Thomas worked on that movie, and Eric Larson worked on that movie, and Tim Burton worked on that movie, and Brad Bird worked on the movies, and Jerry Reese. And so it was a time when everybody was kind of in the same boat together in a real handoff almost of everything the old guys learned to us young'uns who didn't really know what we were doing yet.
And then we also got a taste of CG, that tune, using the computer as a tool to make all that clockwork. I mean, that was a famous scene back then. And
Yeah, there's a guy named Mike Peraza and a effects animator named Patty Peraza, and they happen to be married. And they both are extraordinary. And they did some work on that was kind of ahead of its time, along with many other people. So on Black Cauldron was kind of the first use of computer graphics. And then that clockwork scene in Basel was a harbinger, to use a big word, of things to come. It was something that showed what could happen with moving cameras and things. And was really exciting. And the work was crude. Those clock gears could not go directly to the screen. They had to be printed out on paper and hand painted, because there was no effective coloring program to paint those things. So anyway, it was a really, really interesting time, and a lot of hunger to do something new and fresh. And I see that now. It's funny. I see, like, one of my favorite movies last year was Klaus, and it's a hand-drawn animated film, but they moved 2D animation forward. Instead of going back to 2D, they actually moved the look and the feeling and the design of it forward. And that was really exciting for me, because that's something that we were trying to do 30, 40 years ago. I hate to say 40, but 30 years ago. And you see that today. And I think that's always exciting when an industry gets stuck in the rut, which I think animation does get stuck once in a while, to see somebody like the, Sergio Pablos and the guys on Klaus move it ahead, or, the same that we were trying to do back on, Little Mermaid was another movie, or Roger Rabbit, that kind of moved the industry ahead and moved the needle a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Sergio. I had him as a guest. I did just like a couple weeks ago.
He's a really brilliant guy and kind of a brave entrepreneur to pull together the people he has, and but the talent on that movie is extraordinary. So I really admire what they did.
Yeah, growing up with 2D, and then seeing Roger Rabbit and just being amazed. And that was not just it was amazed to see how you combine the live action with the animation, and that whole everything's on ones, because everything's usually on twos. And with Richard Williams, animation is incredible.
Yeah, it was. And I really have to credit Bob Zemeckis and Richard Williams. Bob was, because he was fearless about doing things you never did before. Like, I worked on a movie called Pete's Dragon, and you were very cautious about moving the camera. And when you did, it was very calculated. Maybe you moved it in a straight line laterally, like a pan shot or a dolly shot, but very carefully. And, Mary Poppins, all those films were very carefully calculated so that the animators could animate on twos. And that was all thrown out in partially terrifying, but partially good way, because it allowed Zemeckis to make just his movie, a modern movie. And Richard Williams, to his credit, said, I'm just going to be Zemeckis's pencil. I'm going to strap myself onto his back, and you just tell me what you want, and I'll draw it. And that's how it worked. People often talk about Richard Williams as a demanding, difficult, whatever. And I have the greatest respect for him and had a great time working with him. He is demanding, and the demand for quality that he has is extraordinary. But he's really funny, and he's really smart, and he's an amazing draftsperson. And his ability to execute things, like that whole maroon cartoon at the beginning of the movie is pretty much all of his animation, just literally him. And the idea of doing things on one was fine. He did, his whole movie, his Stephen the Cobbler movies on one. So it's like, fine, that's no big deal. So that was an eye-opening experience, because I had grown up for a few years at Disney, and it was at the end of a phase at Disney. It was at the end of several people retiring and that kind of thing. And then to go to London and work with Dick, which was a very young studio, a very international studio. And that's where I hired people like Nick and James, and brought in people who were like new veterans, like Tom Cito, and brought over Andrea Stasia and Phil Niblink and Simon Wells, and Russell Hall, who was the brilliant animator that animated Jessica. So when you have those people in the studio, something really interesting is going to come out, and it did, thankfully.
You did a commencement speech for all the 2020 graduates, which I thought was very, very nice to see that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Let's roll that right now.
Class of 2020, my name's Hahn, and I'm here with a quick commencement address. When you graduate, first of all, know that you have loving people all over the country and around the world cheering you on, because you are the hope of the future. And I really mean that. You've studied, you've committed yourself to better education, you've learned what you can learn, and yes, you have a long ways to go. But you can accomplish great things in your life. Here's the way to do that. Celebrate the milestones. We never do. We always think, oh, it's such a grind. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to work at 24-hour days, and I'm going to commute in my car and all that. If there's one thing this nasty virus has taught us, is to stop for once in a while and consider your life. Meditate on the possibilities of your life and the potential that you have as a human being, because that potential is great.
I also liked your speech about when you got your June Foray Award.
Yeah, thanks. I was pretty amazed to get that honor, and I knew June, and that award in itself means a lot to me. And I don't know, I'm no hero. I really like the idea of collaborating, and that's what I like about animation to a degree more than live action. And live action is tremendously collaborative, and there's some brilliant, fun people in live action. But I like the kind of team sport of animation and how that comes together a lot, and have been lucky to hang out with those people.
Well, I have a couple of questions I asked some of my viewers to send me. Only a couple. One was about the Black Cauldron. Just wanted to know if the author of the Black Cauldron, did he have any input whatsoever into what that film was about? Or
Boy, what a good question. I don't think so. I don't think so. The producer of that movie was Joe Hale, great longtime Disney guy who's still around. And the book itself was around for a long time, and in a place where it had been developed in a number of different ways. A lot of different people had worked on it, but I'm not sure the original author was involved in it at all.
And then the other question I had was with Mickey Mouse. He started off as the little everyman character, and he's kind of evolved into the symbol of Disney magic now. What do you think about that transition?
When Mickey started out and Walt Disney himself was doing his voice, he was really everyman, and he was, he didn't put up with bullies, and he defended Minnie, and he had an edge to him. And my favorite Mickey is probably in the 50s or so. And there were tons of cartoons done with Pluto and, Mickey's Christmas Tree and Nifty 90s, and Fred Moore, one of the great animators at Disney, got involved in it. Those are beautiful Mickeys to watch from an animation standpoint. And then later, as it got into the 70s and 80s, it did become more of a corporate symbol, and it became a stiff character for some weird reason. Mm-hmm. And by stiff, I mean not only in its animation, which occasionally it was stiff, but just in the limitations of what you could do with Mickey Mouse. Mm-hmm. He became like a corporate executive or a political figure. Thankfully, that's changed a little bit. And I think the most recent Mickey stuff that's being done by the television division, those really irreverent, wonderful, mm-hmm. designed Mickey and Minnie cartoons, I think are fantastic. Because Mickey's back to being himself again, and it's not so precious. I think whenever you get precious with a character, and it happened to Bugs Bunny, it happens to these characters that become very valuable to a company, and oddly they lose the very essence of why they became valuable. They lose their personality a little bit. So it's nice to see, and I certainly hope the same for Warner Brothers and the Space Jam kind of movies, that they bring those characters back. And it's one thing we want to do on Roger Rabbit is be able to animate, Daffy Duck, like the Clampett Daffy Duck. He's just nuts. And we were able to kind of push it in that direction and remind people why they loved animation so much.
Speaking of Roger Rabbit, have you thought about, is there anything about Roger Rabbit 2 or?
There's not. There has been over the years. There's been some, even some really good scripts. scripts about where, like prequels where Roger came from or how Roger and Jessica met. But they never came together for a variety of reasons. It's a complicated, every day it gets more complicated business arrangement because it's a co-venture between Steven Spielberg's Amblin Entertainment and Disney. But more than that, that would be totally doable. But more than that, the characters themselves that we were able to use 30 years ago are very cherished right now. Nobody was doing anything with Yosemite Sam and Foghorn Leghorn, and
Right.
the Fleshers weren't making any Betty Boop cartoons. So to call up Richard Flesher and say, "Hey, can we use your dad's cartoons?" and we need Clo-Clo the Clown, and he said yes. And he came. Richard was a amazing live action director at the time. He did 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Mm-hmm.
He used to come by the studio and approve Betty Boop scenes for us, and generously so. It's like, oh, this is funny. This is great. So to do that today, back then we were able to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Steven Spielberg, Disney, can we have your characters?" And it was yes. Today would be a little more complex.
I know you've done a lot of documentaries. You got your own company, Stone Circle, that you're doing documentaries for. What do you have any new projects you're working on?
The newest, which is going to come out at in a few weeks, actually, on Disney Plus, is the Howard Ashman documentary.
Oh, okay.
And that's something I've been working on for a long time because I wanted to really tell Howard's story. There's not a book about him. There's no film about him. And yet he was central to the rebirth of animation. And we probably wouldn't be here talking today if it weren't for him. So I really wanted to tell his story. I worked hard with his family and with the Library of Congress and places that have his archives to try to bring that back to life. So that's coming out on Disney Plus. I'm making, we just got an Emmy nomination for another documentary we made for PBS about teachers, about a great teacher who, Erin Gruelle, who works in Long Beach and uses literature to teach the kids there how to enjoy writing. It's called Freedom Writers. And so about 5 years ago, excuse me, I got really into doing documentaries about social issues. And part of that is I feel like the world didn't need another animated movie from Don. I think there is a time in your life when you have to look and say, I've done what I can do. I've done the best I can do. I'm not sure I can do more of that. And I wanted to tell movies about social issues. I felt strongly that I wanted to use my skills as a filmmaker to kind of shift gears and go into telling stories that about people that maybe don't have a voice. So that's what I've been doing lately. I love it.
Oh.
And I really encourage you and all of your listeners to make a documentary, even if it's 6 minutes long. But you can go out with your camera and shoot it, and it doesn't have to be a talking heads thing like PBS or whatever. Right. But shoot a story, and it's so educational and so fun. And the fact that the tools are so accessible and the entry level is so accessible. If 20 years ago, we still had film, there wasn't a digital universe, you had butt splicers and tape, and you were trying to put together this clumsy thing that you had to send off to distributors in the lab and all this stuff. That's all gone. So now you can make and edit and write your own music and distribute your film, which people are doing every day. Like the statistics about what people upload to Vimeo and YouTube every day are staggering. So it's been really fun. And I also, in contrast to animation, and believe me, I love animation, but doing a documentary is 3 or 4 people. And it's very, it's a small group of people, and it's an editor, a producer, a researcher. And I like that intimacy of a small group. Movies are hard to make, so it's not that it's any easier than anything, but it's just a very different experience than animation, which is 200 or 300 people. So I look at animation now as just, it's a miracle. I like Glenn Keane's trailer for his new movie with Netflix just came out yesterday. And it's amazing. You look at it and go, this is brilliant. Glenn's all over it, and there's hand-drawn animation in it, and he's a good friend. And I just go, good for him. This looks like a masterpiece from him. And that's the same when movies come out from Cartoon Saloon or, like Klaus, like we were talking about, or from, Miyazaki or whoever. So I feel like I love sitting back now and watching the art of animation grow and change. and it gets stuck. There's kind of a stuck. People are still doing movies that look like Pixar movies from 20 years ago, and that's not necessarily fresh. Some of them are successful, some aren't. But when you see something fresh, it's exciting. It's really exciting. So anyway, but that's kind of off the rails of my life. But I feel like going into documentaries and seeing and making documentaries like you're talking about is really fun and exciting.
It was a CIFA Awards, and you gave a speech about Roy Disney, and it's very emotional. It's very, very nice, speech. And I was walking around to going to my car, and somebody stopped me, and they went, "Oh, excuse me, sir. I just want to thank you for that speech. That was so, your speech about Roy Disney." And I'm just going, "Wait a minute. No, I'm."
I hope you thank them. I try to be great.
I said thank you
for that.
And then, but friends of mine, they're like, "You should have said, yeah, you're him." And I'm like, "No, I'm not gonna do that, because that's gonna come back on you. That will."
Yeah, but I would have gone with it. I maybe I can send you some glasses and you can like really do it. But yeah, I always felt like we're brothers. So
yeah, I think I just have to get your same style of glasses. I think I can get your voice. I think I can kind of imitate that now.
Yeah, it's a little lower, and you need to age a lot. So
age a lot. Yeah, but I think if anything, but the only thing is you're very tall, so height would definitely throw us off. But I think if you went into a meeting, and you couldn't make the meeting, just let me know. Give me a call. I'll be glad to go.
Do that.
What are they going to say? You got shorter. It's kind of insulting.
Well, no, you could log in on Zoom and they'll never know.
Exactly. Now I can do this. Perfect. So, anything else coming up that you want to let people know about?
No, I'm working on a couple book projects, which I love to do, and then I'm kind of in search mode. I'm reading a lot of stories, looking for those artistic heroes that I can do documentaries about. So thanks for the tip on Dr. Seuss. I guess we'll have to give you a screen credit or something. But I love that. So I'm searching for that, and I love what you do. It's such a valuable time now for students to be able to search around and get input, not just from the classes that they're in, but from the world. And like you mentioned, the Disney Family Museum, they have a great lecture series twice a week on Wednesdays and Fridays. And they've had on, so many good, like Kirk Wise and Gary Trousdale, the directors of Beauty and the Beast, have been on it. Tom Moore, the director of Book of Kells, is going to be on it. Dice Asumi, the Tonko House guys, are going to be on it. Jodie Benson, the voice of Ariel. So if you look up at the website, I think it's waltdisney.org. And that's the museum site, and they have some really nice lectures and classes going on, even though they're closed down for the virus, the way everybody's closed down. So that it's a great thing now, like what you're doing and what's available out there. So happy to be part of it.
I don't know what to say now. Wow, thank you.
No, I mean it. It's really true. It's really true.
Okay. I want to thank you again for being on Animateducated, and just spending some time here and talking about what you're working on now. If you need any, got to get to that meeting and you need someone, just if I only were two people.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to FedEx my glasses over to you right now, actually, so you can do that.
Great. Okay. All right. I'll send you.
Take care of yourself.
All right. Thanks again.
You bet. Bye-bye now.
That was Don Hahn of Disney history, part of history there. So please subscribe to Animateducated if you enjoyed this, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks again for tuning in. See you later. Bye-bye.